Hey, what's up Spurs fans, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, I'm just a guy who likes digging into NBA data, especially Spurs data, to see what's really happening on the floor. By day I work as an analyst, I use Python and SQL a lot, and honestly sometimes I get tired of pure hot takes, so I thought why not use the data instead. With the Spurs and Thunder matchup coming up, I wanted to look back at how these games actually unfolded, because when I watch Spurs games, I'm usually less focused on the box score and more interested in the strategy, the rotations, and which lineups actually work together. For this video, I pulled lineup data from the Spurs' last 4 games against OKC, extracted all the lineups, normalized them, and then aggregated offensive and defensive ratings weighted by the total minutes those groups spent on the floor. And what showed up was honestly pretty fascinating. The most used lineup against the Thunder was Fox, Devin, Barnes, Kornet, and Castle, and they played 28 minutes together, which is a meaningful sample, posting an offensive rating of 122.4, a defensive rating of 118.5, and a net rating of plus 3.9. Wemby isn't in this group, which makes sense because he was recovering during that stretch. But even without him, this lineup was slightly above average offensively and roughly neutral overall, though not particularly strong defensively. On the defensive end, the lineup that really stood out was Fox, Harper, Devin, Barnes, and Wembanyama. And even though they only played 3 minutes together in today's fast-paced NBA, that still matters, and their defensive rating was an absurd 58.5, meaning opponents barely scored when that group shared the floor. Offensively, the most explosive lineup was Fox, Barnes, Julian, Kornet, and Castle, and in just 4 minutes they posted an offensive rating of 216, which is obviously inflated by the small sample size, essentially suggesting they scored on nearly every possession. And while some of that is likely influenced by who OKC had on the court at the time, it's still what the data shows. On the flip side, the lineup that struggled the most was Harper, Julian, Keldon, Kornet, and Castle, and over their limited minutes they recorded an offensive rating of just 28.9, a defensive rating of 143.8, and the worst net rating of the group. Again, reminding us how important balance and fit are, especially in small rotations. When looking at the best overall combination, the lineup of Fox, Harper, Devin, Barnes, and Wembanyama jumps off the page, posting a net rating of over 200 per 100 possessions, with elite offense and suffocating defense, even though they only shared the floor for 3 minutes. Of course, lineup data always comes with context, who they were matched up against, the game situation, crowd momentum, and rotation timing all play a role. But even with those caveats, this gives us a real glimpse into which combinations work, which ones don't, and what to watch for when the Spurs face the Thunder again. Now let's tighten this up a bit and raise the minimum threshold to 6 minutes so we're working with more meaningful samples. When we do that, the best offensive lineup becomes the group of Harper, Devin, Barnes, Castle, and Wembanyama. This lineup posted an offensive rating of 160 with a defensive rating of 123, and they spent 7 minutes together on the floor, which starts to feel a lot more usable from an analysis standpoint. On the defensive side, the strongest group was Fox, Harper, Julian, Johnson, and Wembanyama. This lineup logged 14 minutes together and held opponents to a defensive rating of 78.6 while producing an offensive rating of 104, showing a much more balanced and sustainable profile. The worst performing lineup, however, was Fox, Julian, Keldon, Kornet, and Castle, a group that struggled to generate offense with a rating of 74 while allowing 83.3 on defense, though the silver lining here is that they only played 6 minutes together. Finally, the best overall lineup under this tighter filter was Fox, Harper, Julian, Keldon, and Kornet, though it comes with a clear caveat that they only shared the floor for 6 minutes total. So there you have it. Those are the key lineups the Spurs used against the Thunder under more realistic, minute thresholds, Of course, this picture is likely to change when they meet again, especially now that Victor is healthy, and after seeing the recent shooting struggles from Mr. 100% himself, Harrison Barnes. Now, using this lineup data, we can start to identify which players matter most specifically against the Thunder. The way this works is by collecting every lineup that includes a particular player, then aggregating those results using a weighted average based on total minutes played, which gives us a weighted net rating for each individual. It's no surprise that Wembanyama sits at the top, but what's more interesting is what happens underneath him. One thing that really stood out to me is how important Harrison Barnes has been in these matchups. Barnes carries essentially the same average net rating as Devin, but he does it while logging more minutes, which says a lot about his steadiness and impact within these lineups. Another interesting insight is Keldon Johnson's slightly negative net rating. On paper that looks concerning, but this is one of those stats I tend to take lightly, because so much of what Keldon brings is intangible. The energy, the pace, the physicality, the timely threes, and the relentless work on the glass don't always show up cleanly in lineup metrics, but they absolutely shift momentum during key stretches. Kornet, on the other hand, struggles a bit when isolated at the individual level, which lines up with what we see on the floor. And of course, there's Mr. 100% himself, Harrison Barnes again, who we all know has been trending down over the last few games. That makes Julian's upward trend even more important, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Spurs lean on Julian more heavily in their final matchup against the Thunder. So that's really it for me. I hope this breakdown gave you something useful, or at least something different to think about. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And until next time, stay curious.